From the beginning of the song, we were presented with a dynamic of this relationship. These two people, the essence of their soul is different. While this love interest is not the exact same as this town, he is a product of the town. I imagine the protagonist here wearing a metaphorical leather jacket. She's a mastermind. She knows everything. I feel like I'm your teacher giving you homework. You're all getting A's. Good job. She might have stalked him on Facebook as the years have gone by. I don't know. I'm not psychic, but like I would make an educational guess, right? Hi everyone, welcome to this video. On my channel, I analyze song lyrics very in depth through the lens of literary analysis. Today, we are continuing our analyses of songs from Taylor Swift's newest album, Midnights. I will make sure to link my playlist of Midnights analyses so far below for you, and my Taylor Swift analyses playlist as well. I analyze quite a lot of Taylor Swift on this channel. I think we're up to about 30 plus analyses so far, so I will make sure to link my Taylor Swift analysis playlist below for you. We're almost done with all the folklore songs. We're making good headway on Evermore. I've also touched upon her other albums as well. Now I'm excited that Midnights is going to be in the mix too. After I'm done with all the songs, I will be doing album summaries and other fun things as well, so make sure to stay tuned. Here's a list of literary terms I may refer to throughout this video, and as always, everything I state is just my own personal opinion. Music is a very subjective thing, and I always enjoy hearing your take down below in the comments. Today we're going to be analyzing the song Midnight Rain by Taylor Swift from her album Midnights. This entire song is just chock full of juxtapositions, so just keep that in mind as we get started. Let's get into it. This song title is very interesting. I want to break down each word, talk about the imagery and the connotations associated with them, and then I want to put them back together. Let's talk about midnight. I've already stated this, I think, in my antihero analysis, that it's really interesting to think of midnight as the precise moment, the precise nanosecond in which we have a change in the day. We go from PM to AM. The numerical value we assign to the day also changes in that brief moment. You know, midnight brings in a whole entire year as well. It is a very tiny moment of transition. I also like to think of midnight as just literally being night. I think that nighttime is defined differently for different people, depending on your routine, depending on if you work nights or not. But I view midnight as a time when most of like the city or the town is already closed down. If you look outside your window and if you live in a neighborhood, lots of the lights are going to be shut off. People are going to sleep. So I associate midnight with a sort of darkness. So I do associate dark imagery with midnight, and dark imagery is usually not super positive. Dark imagery in general can represent ominous things, can represent negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative feelings. It can be a foreshadow. When something is dark, you can't see it clearly. It can be mysterious, and that could be positive or negative. Something being mysterious can sometimes be intriguing and interesting, but if there's a darkness, it also can be dangerous. You don't have clarity. It's the opposite of light imagery. We're going to talk about light imagery when we get into the song because we have the mention of sunlight. So more on that in a second. So we're thinking about midnights in terms of time, in terms of dark imagery. You can also view midnights in a more positive way as a brand new start, a brand new day. It can be a sort of renewal and a rebirth, which is very interesting because light imagery, sunlight, can often be associated with renewals and rebirths, not usually dark imagery, but again, everything is context dependent. When I think about midnights, I think about like something having a bit of an edge. It's like edgy a little bit because it's more mysterious and there is some darkness. Now let's talk about the rain. The rain brings forth water imagery, which is often very positive. Water is very cleansing. It can be kind of like a reset, a renewal, and a rebirth. Oftentimes in literature, if a character goes swimming in like a body of water, they're being cleansed as they're swimming around metaphorically. When they come out of like the ocean or the sea, it can signify that they are entering a new era of their life, or it can signify that they have come to a very important realization in their life and they're like a different person moving forward. The water imagery is usually positive. I really like that it's rain because it's like water moving down. I've talked about this before in my videos. I don't interpret stagnant water as positive. I usually interpret that as negative. An example of that would be a pond. It's not flowing, there's no movement. Stagnant water can become murky, it can harbor bacteria, but I interpret like rivers and streams as more positive because it's moving. There's a lively energy associated with it. The ocean and the sea, it really just depends on the context. There's lots of movement, there's things under it. That's just a whole nother interpretation ballgame. Here it's rain. I enjoy how things that were dry before are getting to be associated with water imagery, which is a cleansing thing. And the water is moving down onto them and it's going to drip off of them. So there's constant movement, constant lively energy. I interpret rain here as pretty positive just in general. When we think about it raining at midnight, it can be cozy. Like I like the rain. So to me, I'm like, okay, cozy vibes all over. It's going to be be chill. But it can also not be chill if you're out and about. It's going to hinder your activity depending on the level of rain. I do view, just in general, not within the context of this song yet, these two words to have opposing connotations. I associate like a darkness, maybe not black, but like a cobalt blue with purple. Those are like the color vibes I associate with midnight. But I associate a sort of brightness and more positive sort of vibe with rain usually. So they have opposing energies. However, what I find to be incredibly interesting is that both of them can be viewed metaphorically as a sort of renewal, because midnight marks a brand new beginning, a fresh start for the new day, and rain can signify a renewal and a rebirth as well. There are a lot of ways we can think about this song title. For me, in the context of this song, having read through the lyrics numerous times and listened to the song on repeat, I don't know how many times, a lot. For me, I think that when the protagonist calls herself Midnight Rain, she is talking about how there's an unknown, mysterious element to her life that she's not really scared of. Other people might be scared of the unknown, cobalt blue, deep purple energy of her life because she's going to be moving in a direction that is not the traditional path. So there's a lot of mystery in what the protagonist is striving to do in this song. I think that would scare off a lot of people. I imagine the protagonist here wearing a metaphorical leather jacket. Within this song, when the protagonist says that they're midnight rain, they are someone who's kind of like existing in the metaphorical darkness and in the metaphorical unknown. I think it's positive ultimately because of the water imagery associated with it, but their life is mysterious. They're pursuing something that is non-traditional. They want things that the people around them may not want. To the people around them, that may seem weird. So it's something that could be exciting to the protagonist, but it's something that could be scary to other people. And we'll get more into this as we go through the lyrics of the song. This song is filled to the brim with juxtapositions, so get excited for comparing a lot of words. There's going to be a lot of talk about diction in this song, more than usual, so dictionary is at the ready. Let's dive in. We start off this song with water imagery, just the word rain. The full name of the song is Midnight Rain. I assume it's cut off from the full phrase, so that's interesting. It's like a fragment of the song title. It gives it a bit of an edge, and I do associate like an edgy sort of feeling with the words midnight. We're going to talk about the love interests in this song, and they're pretty like wholesome. They're like picture perfect. The edginess that I'm talking about here is completely opposite of that. So we start off with water imagery here. This could also just be due to the melodic nature of the song, and they wanted to have the first word rhyme with the word pain in the third line here. It says, he wanted it comfortable, I wanted that pain. From the beginning of the song, we were presented with a dynamic of this relationship. This love interest wanted to be comfortable, but the protagonist wanted the pain. They are already opposing one another. You don't have to be the exact same as your romantic partner, but there do have to be some core foundational things that you agree on, or that your viewpoints are in like the same sphere about. That's my opinion. So when it says that he wanted it comfortable and she wanted the pain, I think this is talking about lifestyle. How do you approach the world, and how do you approach building a life? If someone wants it comfortable, I would interpret that as them wanting to follow the path that's already laid out for them. They don't really need to like make a stand about anything or to create waves. They just want to do what everyone before them has done. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to be clear, no one is in the right or the wrong here. People are just different. People want different things. And sometimes if you're conflicting in such intense ways about like the basic way you view and want to build your life, there can be some friction within a relationship. When the protagonist says she wanted the pain, first of all, it's her saying that she's okay with the discomfort that comes with radical change and that comes with the unknown. She's okay with that. That's like an emotional and psychological sort of pain. If you're someone who wants to be a musical artist, the road is going to be very interesting and very mysterious, and you don't even know if you are going to get to your goal. There's a lot of mystery in that. There's a lot of pain in that. It's not the easy path. Different things work for different people. I feel like when you think about someone as Midnight Rain, there is an unknown depth to them. You don't know what to anticipate. You can't predict what they're going to do because they themselves don't know, but also because there's like a sort of dynamic nature about their life choices that you can't possibly know what they're going to do next or what decision they're going to make. And I don't mean that in a negative, impulsive way. I just mean that they perhaps maybe go with the flow a little bit better than the person who wants it comfortable. I associate stability with a person who wants it comfortable. I associate someone who wants a routine, who wants to know what their day is going to look like, who has a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan, and who is actually going to complete those goals and those plans. They maybe look like they have their life together a little bit more than the Midnight Rain person does, but I don't think like any person is wrong in this, right? Different things work for different people. It depends on your personality, on your past experiences, on what you saw growing up as a child. If maybe your home was not super stable, you had a lot of like financial issues or like other issues, maybe you crave stability because that brings you comfort. Stability can be safety to you, right? Stability is safety, but just in general, to some people, stability may be boring, but to you, maybe that stability is freedom. Being boring and having a stable job is a sort of freedom for you because you have an income that you can depend on. There's a lot of different things that can influence if you're like a midnight rain person or like a person who likes it more comfortable. This song is about the protagonist realizing the differences between her and a romantic interest, and also her realizing that it's not going to work because of these differences. I do think that this is talking about a relationship that this protagonist had when they were younger. I think in their adolescence, I would say in their teen years, like between 14 and 18 when you're supposed to be in high school. I'm imagining this occurring in like the same hometown that was in the song You're on Your Own Kid, but I don't think they're about the same love interest, because the one in You're on Your Own Kid did not care about the protagonist, but I think the one in this one is a nicer person to the protagonist. I remember that Taylor had a quote like in 2008 or something. She did an interview where she said that she was intimidated by the fear of being average. Not to age myself too much, but I literally remember it was like a pull-out quote in a magazine and I cut it out and I put it on my wall. So Taylor, if this is about her, if this is 100% autobiographical, we don't know if it is or not. This could be like inspired by true events and then kind of fictionalized. So I'm just going to keep saying protagonist, but if someone were to say, I'm intimidated by the fear of being average, then there's someone who wants to try new things and they want to achieve new things. They want to explore, but like actually, they want to explore and create and understand things. And there's like existential stuff going on, and there's like art, and then there's just like business endeavors. It's like the spirit of an entrepreneur, a lively sort of energy that's mysterious and like midnight rain. And that seems exciting and cool, but to some people that may seem terrifying and illogical and not a safe bet to make. I think both people are in the right. I understand both perspectives of this. I think that if you want to play it more safely, if you want to be more comfortable, if you want to be like sunshine, I don't think that's boring at all. I think you can enjoy living like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I personally do kind of identify more, and by kind of, I mean like entirely more, with the midnight rain person in this song, just me personally. I would be interested to know if you feel comfortable sharing, if you feel like you're a midnight rain person, or if you are a person that's like sunshine. And this can exist on a continuum. It's not one extreme or another. I'm definitely somewhere in the middle, but I'm in the middle, a lot closer to midnight rain. What side of the continuum are you on and why? I feel like I'm your teacher giving you homework. You're all getting A's. Good job. The protagonist also says she wants the pain, I think, because she has the awareness to know that the goals that she wants for herself are going to have some painful moments built into it. She's like mentally prepared for that. She's a mastermind. She knows everything, and she's already looked ahead at what needs to be done. So she's making some wise assumptions here. It says he wanted a bride. I was making my own name. The love interest here wanted a wife. They wanted stability. They want to have a family. It's the more traditional life path, which again, there's literally nothing wrong with. I find it interesting that Taylor is talking a little bit more about like marriage on this album. In Lavender Haze, we have the mention of people wondering if she's married or not, the comment about how women are either for the night or just a bride. We will get into that more when I analyze Lavender Haze. The protagonist here was making her own name. So usually in a heterosexual relationship, when you get married, the woman takes the last name of the man. The lyrics here are playing off of that fact, right? The idea of marriage and taking the name of your husband is being compared with the protagonist creating a name for herself. The protagonist is making a name for herself in the industry she wants to work in. She's creating her brand pretty much, right? That's how I'm thinking about it. She is starting to create a stable foundation underneath her so she can pursue and excel in this career that she wants. She couldn't see herself being in a marriage at that time because her dreams were taking her in a completely opposite direction. I'm not saying that you can't have the career of your dreams if you're married. I don't think that is the intent of these lyrics. I think this is just meant to create more of a juxtaposition between the protagonist and the love interest here. They wanted different things. The protagonist couldn't be a bride for this person. It wasn't her truth. These are all reflections of the protagonist's personal decisions and what the protagonist felt was right to do. This song to me is a reflection of decisions that were made sometimes even when a path looks good, you intuitively know it's not meant for you. I think that in a nutshell is what this song is about. I find the word bride to be interesting because it's not wife. A bride is someone who is about to get married or has just gotten married. So there's a connotation of newness with the word bride and like maybe of youth, I guess. I don't know. I think people are getting married later and later these days, but I think for a lot of people, they associate youth with a bride. The word bride makes me think of the beginning of a marriage. And at the beginning of a marriage, there, of course, is going to be like the honeymoon period, but also like there's going to be a lot of adjustments, maybe some like uncomfortable moments or moments of friction where you're adjusting to life together. I do find it interesting that it says bride and not wife. I feel like the word wife brings with it a feeling of stability in a way in regards to your dynamic, because if you're a wife, I would naturally just think that you've been married for a little while and you're kind of in a rhythm with your spouse, and I equate that to just more chill vibes, more stability in like a positive way. I don't know. I think the word bride here kind of introduces some unsettledness. It introduces like excitement because that's exciting if you're someone who wants to get married, but it's also like a transition point in your life. Maybe that's intentional because becoming a bride would be a very big transition for anyone, and this protagonist didn't want to have that sort of transition in their life. They wanted to go after other things. In the case of the protagonist, she was chasing the fame because she wanted to become a musical artist, and that's part of the territory, right? I know that chasing fame is a thing that people say, but the word chase, that diction, is something to note because that's a very active sort of word. It's literally a verb, but when you're chasing something, you are going after it with intent. You have the intention of catching it. She was very motivated, very driven to get to this goal of hers. It says, he stayed the same, all of me changed like midnight. So the love interest here stayed the same, and I think that the protagonist knows this because she might have stalked him on Facebook as the years have gone by. I don't know, I'm not psychic, but like I would make an educational guess, right? You also would just hear about how people are doing through mutual friends. It says that he stayed the same, but the protagonist changed like midnight. I want to draw your attention to the word all. All of the protagonists changed like midnight, and midnight is when change occurs in a nanosecond, right? Everything about the protagonist changed very quickly. I think there are some things in life where you either come to a realization about something, you have like an epiphany, or you make a very specific decision that changes the course of your life and it changes you as a person. For this protagonist, she made a choice to go after her dreams and everything changed about her. The way that she thinks is different now because she has a goal. She knows she's not staying in her hometown. The way she acts is different now because again, she has a goal. She has something that she's going after. The way that she spends her time is going to be different. Her boundaries in her life are going to be different. She's not going to waste time on things that don't serve her and build her up as a person. Because if you're going after a goal, especially one that big, you need to feel as chill as you can in other areas of your life. So you need to enforce boundaries. The protagonist is in a moment of transition, and she's going to have lots of moments of transitions in her life because of the path that she's chosen. But this love interest has stayed the same. They're going to have moments of transition as well, like maybe in regards to work and family, but from the protagonist's perspective, he stayed the same. But I think that it's interesting, especially as you get older, when you reconnect with people from your past, from your adolescence, and you realize that some people really are the same, like in every single possible way in regards to their interests, their hobbies, the way they're living their life. They're just the same person. Their style is the same, like their aesthetic is the same. Like that's cool, right? But then there's some people that you like literally don't recognize them. It's not because of lip filler. It's just everything about them is different. The way they act is different. The way they talk is different. Like their interests are different, not in like a fake way, but like they've just changed it in a very dynamic way. And it's very, very apparent. The way they carry themselves is different. Their horizons have broadened in a way. And I don't want you guys to think I'm viewing the person who didn't change as being like a negative sort of stagnant. I would only ever say that's negative if the person did want something different for themselves. If that person did want to change and did want to have a dynamic life, then yeah, that sort of thing would be negative for them in that context. But if they're chill with their life and they seem to be like more stable and not changing and all over the place, then that's positive, right? You having what you want is positive. So I want to be clear, I'm not associating like stagnancy with this person not changing. I'm not viewing that as negative for that person. I'm just viewing it as something that does not vibe with the protagonist. There's no one right way to lead your life. The two people in this song wanted different things, and they view the world, they view their life in contrasting ways. I interrupt this video with a very special message from myself. This is sponsored by me. I want to let you guys know that I'm offering services on the website Fiverr. I'm offering a few different things. I can help you refine your own analysis skills to develop your own unique perspective about poetry, about song lyrics, about any written work. I've also been getting a lot of messages from you guys letting me know that you use my videos to help you learn English. So if you need an English conversation partner, I'm your girl. We can converse through the internet. I can help you with pronunciation, sentence structure, and random things about American culture that are not super intuitive. If you're a songwriter or a poet and want me to read your original piece of work and provide you with a very detail-oriented feedback, I can do that as well. All that information is going to be linked down below. If you have any questions about any of the services I'm offering, please message me directly through the website Fiverr. Back to the video that you actually clicked here for. The first time I heard this song, I was really shook because I was not expecting the distorted voice. I was like so confused. I was like, what is happening right now? It could literally just not be that deep. A distorted voice that sings the entirety of verse 1 could be an element that's just meant to add to the listening experience. But I don't know, is a distorted voice Taylor's voice using a decoder or something? Or do you think it's someone else's voice? Maybe Jack's? IDK. There could be a reason this voice is distorted. I actually touched upon this in the short vertical video I made, and I will link that down below. It's a YouTube Shorts. It's also on my TikTok and my Instagram Reels. But I talked about how the distorted voice in question adds significance because in my opinion, there is a connection between the song question, Out of the Woods, and between Style. Out of the Woods and Style are allegedly about the same relationship. In the song Out of the Woods, this is from Taylor's album 1989, there is repetition of the lyric, I remember, all throughout that song. It's a very integral part of the song. The first lyric in question is I remember, and it's distorted, and to me it's a callback to that song. And to me, it's distorted because it's kind of like the protagonist is remembering that relationship. The distorted voice in that song, in my opinion, creates distance between the protagonist and that memory. It's creating emotional distance, but also like a time sort of distance. Is there a word for time distance? I don't know if the distorted voice here is meant to have a similar purpose. I don't even know if that's meant to be the purpose in question, but that's just how I feel about it. Here, it could be distorted because of the emotions the protagonist felt, because the word rain is almost always distorted. Yeah, even in the chorus, the protagonist says midnight, and then the word rain is distorted. So the protagonist does she ever sing the word rain herself? I don't think she does. That's really interesting, and that kind of seems to be intentional to me. And again, it could be intentional for stylistic reasons to elevate the listening experience, but it could also have like a more metaphorical meaning. With Taylor, I never want to write anything off because she's very intentional and very detail-oriented. So like it could be possible that this distorted voice is like an element that we need to consider. Dictionaries at the ready. Let's proceed. My town was a wasteland. That lyric has a very negative connotation due to the word wasteland. But to drive the point home, let's go ahead and define wasteland. A wasteland can be defined as a barren or uncultivated land. The word barren means not producing or incapable of producing offspring. It can also be defined as unproductive and unfruitful. Now, this definition is in the context of farming. However, we can extrapolate this out metaphorically. For the protagonist, this land, this hometown, does not have any metaphorical lively energy associated with it. There is nothing there that can nourish the protagonist, right? No metaphorical fruit, no metaphorical grain can be grown here that can provide the protagonist with the nutrition that she needs. There is nothing of substance here for her. Let's also define the word uncultivated. It can be defined as lacking in education or refinement, growing or developing without care. This indicates to me that the protagonist may view her hometown in a negative regard just in general, not solely in relation to herself. She may think of her hometown in general as lacking a sort of refinement that she thinks is appropriate. I think this could be true due to the way this lyric is structured. It says, my town was a wasteland. This is a pretty general statement. The protagonist isn't saying that my town was a wasteland to me, or I consider my town a wasteland. She's making a more generalized statement. It makes it seem like it's a wasteland to anyone who comes across it. This indicates to me that the protagonist is not chill with her hometown in general, and also specifically she doesn't believe that it has anything of value to give to her. And this makes sense because in the next lyric, the protagonist talks about how that town was filled with cages and fences. The diction here, the word cages, brings forth a feeling of entrapment. The protagonist feels trapped in her hometown, or she felt trapped in her hometown. And the definitions of cages, when you look it up, a majority of them, if not all of them, most of them refer to animals. So there's a dehumanizing quality to the word cage. The word fence still brings forth feelings of entrapment, although it's a little bit less intense than cages. A fence can signify that land belongs to another person. It can let you know that you're on private land if you're crossing a fence. It also encloses a space. The definitions for fences also mention animals, so again, there's like a dehumanizing aspect to that, but I think cages are definitely more dehumanizing. I also want to comment on the materials used to create a fence. It can be like a wood fence, like a white picket fence maybe, a metal fence, or it could be a wire fence, right? Barbed wire. I talked about barbed wire in my folklore analyses. Think about the song Tolerate It. I will link it down below for you. That was a really, really interesting metaphor about throwing blankets over barbed wire. Pageant queens and big pretenders. The diction here, the word pageant queens, reminds me of small towns, maybe in the South in the United States. Although pageant shows do exist like everywhere in the United States, what I think about in a more stereotypical manner are the small Southern towns we have. The phrase big pretenders to me is really interesting because it reminds me of Taylor's song Long Live from Speak Now. This is why I think this is about her hometown, because that song has very strong hometown vibes. When you look up the word pretender, it gets really interesting. Keep in mind in Long Live, there was the metaphor about a king and a kingdom and like a crown. A pretender is defined as someone who claims or aspires to a title or a position, and an example of that is in regards to the throne. It says that a pretender is someone who claims to be the rightful ruler of a country, although not recognized as such by the current government. This term is often used to suggest that a claim is not legitimate. The protagonist is saying that her hometown was filled with people that thought they were like these big shot people, but in reality they weren't. It was filled with people making false claims about things, maybe people making claims about things that the protagonist didn't agree with. The protagonist's town was something that she did not identify with at all. According to the diction here, it was a place that was sucking the life out of her. It was a place where she could not flourish. The metaphorical soil there would not allow her, as a metaphorical flower, to bloom. Something different bloomed writing in my room, right? But for some, it was paradise. Again, everyone's lives are different and everyone values different things. Someone else could live in the same town that this protagonist does, and the diction that they use to describe it could be the complete polar opposite of the diction used by this protagonist. They could be using very beautiful and majestic metaphors, not using words like wasteland. It all just depends on perspective. For some people, this place was the perfect place. Ultimate perfection, that's what I associate with the word paradise. But for this protagonist, it was not that at all. The second half of this verse, we're given some more details about how the protagonist viewed her former love interest. It says, "My boy was a montage." A montage refers to a piece of work produced by combining smaller parts. You can also think of a montage as a supercut. I view them as pretty much the same thing. I love like fashion montages where they're like at a store trying on outfits. Like Hilary Duff did in a Cinderella story where she was trying to pick out her Halloween costume. I've been trying to bring back my Hilary Duff references. That's my personal form of self-care. Hashtag yay. The fact that the protagonist is saying that her love interest was a montage gives a little bit more depth to this love interest. The way that they're described before as like wanting to be comfortable and not changing at all made them seem perhaps a little bit one-dimensional, but the word montage, that diction, is giving them some more depth, some more angles, right? We have more of a 3D rendition of who this person may have been. It makes them more interesting in my opinion. I don't think the intent here is to make the love interest seem like a bad or boring person. They're just very different people. And I think here when it says montage, it's kind of like the protagonist of the song trying to show us that she has platonic love and respect for this person. She's letting us know he wasn't like super boring. A slow motion love potion, jumping off things in the ocean. That's so satisfying to read. I enjoy the rhyming here. The word love potion is interesting to me because it gives me midnight vibes. I wouldn't think about that word being associated with the love interest here. I would think about the vibes of that word, the connotation being associated more with the protagonist. Love potions, usually when they're depicted, like I guess in cartoons and stuff, it's like purple. Magic is usually depicted using purple, and I associate the color purple with midnight. So that's like an interesting sort of thing. Kind of subtle, and again, could totally just be me. This brings in intrigue and mystery. Slow motion love potion. These are things that I would associate more with a protagonist, not so much the love interest. So that's interesting. Jumping off things in the ocean, that describes someone who is into taking risks. So I think the protagonist is illustrating that while this love interest is not the exact same as this town, he is a product of the town, and he's okay with being a product of the town. He wants to still abide by the town's customs. I'm saying this in a very like matter-of-fact way. Of course, there's more nuance to this. Please keep that in mind. I'm just trying to do this for simplicity's sake, but that's how I'm interpreting that, generally speaking. This boy here is having these moments of jumping into the ocean now, literally or metaphorically, but when he gets older, he wants to abide by like the traditions set forth in his family or in his town. I broke his heart because he was nice. He was like too perfect. He had some excitement about him. He would jump into the ocean. We're told that the protagonist is the one who perhaps broke things off. And I have seen people say that this song is about other celebrities that Taylor has dated. I personally do think it's about someone we don't know that is a love interest from Taylor's hometown. If this is even 100% autobiographical, it could literally just be inspired by true events and extrapolated out. We don't know for sure. This last line here, the protagonist didn't sit and think about breaking up with her partner just because he was nice. She subconsciously realizes that's why. He was too nice, too perfect, too, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but too clean cut maybe, not like rugged enough in a metaphorical way. I think when you are living a life that is not following the trajectory of people who are following a more traditional life, and traditional is relative depending on where you come from, right? I just want you guys to keep that in mind. I think when your life looks a little bit different and your goals are a little bit different, if someone is living a life that may seem perfect on paper, you can't vibe with that easily. The protagonist here has an awareness of what her life is going to be like. She can sense that she can't build anything that's going to grow with this person. This person did nothing wrong. He's a good guy. He treated her well, it sounds like, but it was too much of that energy for her. She can't do anything with that. She can't use that sort of environment to grow the type of garden she needs to grow. The type of garden she wants to grow needs another sort of soil. No one did anything wrong. It just is what it is. Chorus. He was sunshine, I was midnight rain. Sunshine brings forth light imagery. I talk about light imagery quite a bit on this channel. I think the first time it came up was when I analyzed Taylor's song Daylight, link down below. Sunlight is usually positive because light illuminates things. You can see things clearly, it can bring you clarity. It can also be cleansing, it can reveal things to you. There is more of a feeling of safety when there's light because you can literally see things around you. There's less mystery, less ominous undertones. If a person is described as sunshine, I view them as someone who's very bright and happy. I envision someone with golden retriever energy. I don't really view them as someone who's like super mysterious. And I know that some people who appear to be very happy may be going through difficult times. They may be masking their true feelings and their true hardships. The person I'm interpreting here, I don't view it as that type of person. I view this person in this song as someone who genuinely is happy. I know that there are people out there that literally just are chill most of the time. Like they don't suffer from depression or anxiety. Their hardships don't affect them in a way that is very, very dark. That's how I envision this love interest here. They do go through hardships. There may be clouds blocking the sun from time to time, but they go away and it's nothing disastrous. There's not going to be too many thunderstorms. There's not going to be like a hurricane, right? It's going to be pretty mild. And that's just like their nature. The protagonist was Midnight Rain. The word rain here has that distorted sort of quality to the sound when you listen to it. It makes me think about like a thunderstorm or something when it's distorted, like midnight rain. I envision like shaking when I hear the distorted voice in this context because we go from Taylor's voice to the distorted voice. And the first time you're listening, you don't expect it. It's kind of like the rain is starting to fall really quickly. That's one way that that distortion makes me feel. The rest of the chorus is actually sung in a distorted voice as well. In regards to the distorted voice, maybe these are things that are too hard for the protagonist to think about. It makes her really emotional to come to these realizations. And maybe that's why the voice is distorted, because it's creating distance between the protagonist and the memory. It's not in her own voice, but these are her thoughts and her feelings. Sometimes, even though time has passed, you still think about things and they can still make you emotional. So far, that's how I view the distortion. It's creating distance between the protagonist and the memory. That's what's resonating with me right now about the distortion. If that changes while I go through this analysis, I'll let you know. When I think about Sunshine versus Midnight Rain in terms of like men, I think about the show Heart of Dixie, starring Rachel Bilson. I love that show so much. We had Wade Kinsella, and he's not exactly the depiction of Midnight Rain, but when you view Wade Kinsella and you compare him to George Tucker, like George Tucker sunshine. Golden retriever energy, super chill. He's just like happy to be there. I'm not saying that Wade Kinsella is Midnight Rain, but when you compare him to George Tucker, I definitely view George Tucker as someone I would describe as sunshine. So this is not a perfect example, but it's a good example of someone that I envision when I think about someone like being sunshine. It's just like they have it together, but like actually. It came like a postcard. What is the it referring to here? This is interesting, and I would love to hear your take about this. I think the it here is referring to the love interest's existence. His existence came to you like a postcard. A postcard is a card that you send by mail without an envelope. It usually has a very beautiful picture or a photograph on the front, and then on the back you can write a quick message and put the stamp. A postcard to me is pretty compact. There's nothing to fuss about. You don't have to lick the envelope closed. There's like less steps involved. It's cardboard, so it's a little bit thicker than paper, so it's kind of sturdier, relatively speaking. A lot of people do make postcards for the holidays, like they have their cute family photo and it's like holiday themed, and they send these postcards out to their family and friends. So this guy's existence is like that sort of postcard. It describes his family as picture perfect, shiny family, holiday peppermint candy. It's like a perfect holiday postcard. Everyone's smiles are perfect, their teeth are white, no hair out of place, they have a white picket fence, they have their golden retriever energy and a golden retriever dog. They're very well groomed, and they have that very beautiful postcard, and it's going to be delivered to your door with a very seasonally appropriate stamp. Right? And again, oftentimes there are families like this whose actual lives are not perfect. I'm not saying that everything that glitters is gold. Not at all, right? Everyone has their problems, everyone has their issues. But again, people and life and just attitudes towards lives and people's circumstances exist on a continuum. For this love interest, he had a life where things were just more chill, more relaxed. It sounds to me like he was someone in a position of privilege, relatively speaking. Again, everything is relative. Everything in life is filled with nuance. Please don't take what I'm saying like super seriously. These are broad generalizations. For someone to be like picture perfect and shiny, they don't have to be 100% perfect to everyone. They can be 100% perfect and shiny in relation to your own life. Maybe that family wasn't 100% perfect. They had their hardships too, but to her, in comparison to her, it was like, whoa. Everything is relative based on your own life and your own experiences. When I think about something being shiny, I think about it kind of being fancy, maybe something being very clean. It was cleaned very well, so it's shining due to cleanliness. I think about something expensive. When I think about something shiny, I'm subconsciously thinking about someone who lives in the suburbs who is very privileged. That's like the image of the family I get. And again, I know that their lives aren't perfect. Like their lives could be darker than someone who's living somewhere else, but this song is filled to the brim with juxtaposition, and they're meant to be contrasting to the protagonist's life. So again, everything is relative. Holiday peppermint candy. Peppermint candy is a type of candy. I would view it as a classic sort of candy. It's a hard candy, so that makes me think of it as more timeless and classic. I don't know why, it just does. It's not like boring, but it's not like new and exciting. It's more traditional. That's how I would think about peppermint candy, but it's still good, right? Like it's chill, it's good, it's reliable, it has its thing together, it's cute. It is cute. Peppermints are cute. Not 100% boring, not 100% exciting, reliable. It does the job really well. That's what like the guy is like, right? There's nothing wrong with peppermint candy, but maybe this protagonist doesn't identify metaphorically with peppermint candy. Maybe they identify with the chocolate that has chocolate liqueur inside. Still kind of a classic TBH, but very different in its vibe. But for him, it's every day. This love interest doesn't just like clean up nice for the holidays or special occasions, metaphorically speaking. That's his normal. That's his baseline. To reiterate, nothing wrong with any of this. Everything here, the protagonist's life, love interest life, it's all chill. But this love interest has a life that is very specific. From my perspective, I think only a certain type of person would feel comfortable living a life like that with him. They have to be really open to it, or they would have had to have grown up like that themselves. Of course, exceptions occur, but I think if you didn't grow up the way that this love interest did, and if your life wasn't very similar to theirs, there would be friction. You can always get through that, but like it can also be very difficult. I do kind of view them as just like a suburban family that is picture perfect and that actually does have a life that is pretty chill, pretty comfortable, low stress due to like like a financial cushion they may have. And I say that because of the word shiny. It reminds me of things that are expensive, so they're able to get new clothes for like their holiday pictures, right? They're not getting things out of the closet, they're getting things from the store. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. I view this person as more traditional again. I view this person as having family obligations that he's okay with fulfilling. Like, he's not wearing a metaphorical leather jacket, he's not rebelling, he's like chill with it. Some people are chill with it. Like, some people like following in the footsteps of the people before them and their family. People are called to do different things, like existentially. That's the type of vision I have of the type of person this protagonist is talking about. Again, it's a generalization, but that's stereotypically what I think about when I read these lyrics. So the protagonist is peering through a window. When I think about someone peering through a window, I think about someone like opening the blinds and looking like this. They're not looking like straight on. I associate a feeling of curiosity with peering. It's like peering over a fence. You're just like this and you're like, what's going on? I get a feeling of curiosity with the word peered, and maybe of slight caution as well. They're not sure what they're going to find. When they're looking through the window, they see a deep portal. Portal can be defined as a doorway, a gate, or other entrance, especially a large and imposing one. It's like time travel. So this is a metaphorical window. I've talked about windows metaphorically before on my channel. I think it was the song Nobody by Mitski. Pretty sure that was it. Windows are interesting if you want to interpret them metaphorically because you don't really enter and exit your home through a window. You do so through the door. The doors in your home are how you leave and enter. They're your access to the outside world. A window is good to have. It brings in light. If you open it, it can bring in fresh air. You can also look out and see the outside world, but you don't have like direct access to the outside world, right? That's what the door is for. So that's one thing to think about if you want to metaphorically. A window is also smaller than a door. However, a window will allow you to see the outside without actually going outside. A door usually is not see-through, right? So you can't really see what's on the other side unless you look through the little peephole. Window can allow you to see things without actually going out there. So maybe that's like an element of safety if you just want to see what's up before going outside. There's a lot of different ways to think about a window metaphorically if you would like. So this is how I envision these few lyrics. I envision the protagonist on a midnight thinking back to this person, maybe wondering how they're doing, and you think about these things sometimes. So I think the window here is like an internal sort of window to access the protagonist's memories. And this memory is so far back that it's like a portal, right? It's a deep portal. It's something that's very vast. You have to think back a long ways away through all of your experiences you've had since then to get back to this. The life she had when she was interested in this person was much more simple compared to the life she has now while she's looking back to her past. Her life now is a lot more complex because she is a very big star, right? I am inclined to view this from Taylor's perspective, but again, we don't know if it's 100% autobiographical or not. However, we do have a lyric later on that talks about her being on TV. So whoever this protagonist is, there's someone who has become famous, and with fame and success and power comes more complicated scenarios in your life. Generally, childhood and adolescence, there is a bit of a simplicity to that people often find nostalgic. But I think the more successful and the more powerful you are, you kind of lose access to that sort of simplicity. And I think that's why the portal is so deep here. It's interesting she's saying time travel. So far away from you, you were such a different person then. You were living in a different world. It is like you're going time traveling, like a very intense process where you have to go into a time travel machine and like wear gear. It's not as easy as just thinking back to the moment. There's so much space between you and the moment, time-wise, but also just in relation to how you've changed as a person since then. Her love interest stayed the same. If he wants to think back to those moments, it's easy for him to access it. He might still be in the same town. He might pass by the high school he went to every day. It's easier for him to access those memories. But for this protagonist who's the midnight rain, there's so much distance, emotional distance, like psychological distance. There's so many things that happen. She's become so many different people in these past few years due to her experiences, due to the nature of her job, that these things seem further away to her, even though she may be the same age as the love interest here. That's something really interesting to think about. I really do think that time feels warped by the type of life you've had. If you have a life that maybe is more comfortable and stays the same, I think time may feel different to you as opposed to someone who may be midnight rain. And again, nothing is good or bad. It's just different. I don't know. I could talk a lot about like how time is perceived depending on your life and your viewpoint and the type of decisions you've made about your life, but I've already gone on too many tangents in this video, so we're just gonna not we're not going to go there. It's fine. When she's looking through that portal, when she's time traveling back to those memories and the feelings she felt during that time and the decisions she made, she is thinking about the love that was becoming unraveled, right? And when I look at the word unraveled, I think about a ribbon unraveling, like maybe a ribbon to a gift, to a Christmas gift perhaps. I do think they had love for one another. And that's why I think this song is not about the same person that was discussed in You're on Your Own Kid, because that person did not care about her protagonist at all. Love is something that you can kind of envelop yourself in, but they had to unravel the love in this case. I think that's what that's referring to. When it says, in the life I gave away, get in my feels with this one, I really do. The protagonist had to make a decision, right? If she chose to stay with this person, she could see the end before it began, right? She knew what her life was going to look like. She knew it because her life was going to look like what this guy's parents' life looked like, and their parents and their parents. It was very set in stone what type of life she would have, and it was something that like wasn't bad, right? But it just wasn't something aligned with what the protagonist needed and genuinely wanted. I think there's a lot more stability in the life with this sunshine boy, right? More stability, more sureness, and those are positive things in my opinion. But again, sometimes you just can't bring yourself to choose that. It's like a betrayal to yourself. Protagonist had to make a very difficult decision. Go down a path where she knows what her life is going to look like. It's a safe choice to make. She maybe really did love this person and she could have been happy with him. But then there's this other path that's like alluring and mysterious, but you also feel called to. I don't know. It's a difficult decision to make, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. This protagonist got lucky that she became successful going down the other path, but some people may not reach the level of success that they desire or the level of success that can actually sustain a life. The protagonist made a choice and she realizes that by going this way, she can never come back. Like she can't run back and go back to that stable route with this golden retriever energy guy. It's a life that she gave away. The word life here to me is very telling that she knew exactly what her life would have looked like. She knew exactly what she was giving up. She understood. This is not 100% related, but it kind of reminds me of that scene in Pride and Prejudice, 2005 version, starring Keira Knightley as Elizabeth Bennet and Matthew McFadyen as Mr. Darcy. It's one of my favorite movies of all time ever. It's like everyone's favorite movie, but it's so, so beautiful. Okay, spoiler alert for Pride and Prejudice. If you don't know this plot, I don't know what to tell you. The book has been out since like the 1800s. It reminds me of that scene after Lizzie denied Mr. Darcy's proposal and she had to go to Pemberley, which is his estate. It's where he lived. Back then you could just like tour wealthy people's homes. It was like a thing, it was like an activity. And as soon as she got to his home, there's a scene of her just like looking and laughing because that could have been her home, right? That was the life that she said no to. That was the life that she gave away. And you know, I'm not saying you should just marry someone because they have a really cool house. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying. That moment is what I thought of when I read this lyric. That's an example of someone literally viewing the life that they gave away. She's going to his home and looking at what could have been her home, right? That could have been her room. That could have been her tea set in the china cabinet. Sorry about all the tangents in this video. Like, I don't know what's going on. Let's move on. Chorus is repeated 2 times after this. The first time it's repeated, Taylor sings the whole thing. And then the second time it's repeated, the word rain is distorted. I still do think that the distortion is meant to create some breaks between the protagonist and her looking back, especially because now we talked about how it's so difficult for the protagonist to look back. There's so many things she has to sift through to get back to that time. So I'm still going with that same interpretation of the distorted voice. Now we're at the bridge, which is also the last verse. I guess you can also think about this as an outro. It says, I guess sometimes we all get just what we wanted, just what we wanted. The word guess is really important to me. That diction diminishes the intensity of the emotions the protagonist is feeling. It's kind of like saying you're fine when you're not really fine. The word guess makes something conditional. You're like, oh, I guess it's that, I'm not sure. The word guess doesn't have a stable connotation. So to me, that's interesting. It shows me that there's emotion behind these words. I guess sometimes we all just get what we wanted. The protagonist saying that, you know what, like, I guess we all ended up where we wanted to and where we were meant to be. I kind of feel like this guy maybe was perfect for the protagonist. It was just that shiny quality of him that didn't mesh well. But if there's one thing that doesn't mesh with you, then obviously that person's not meant for you. Sometimes maybe you think about, you know, what if? I don't necessarily think the protagonist is like regretting her decision. I think that maybe there are moments in her life that are really difficult due to the path she's chosen. And in those moments, she's like, oh my gosh, like right now my life could be so much more simple if I had, you know, said yes to this guy. And I don't even know if he proposed or not. Like, I don't think he did. That's not how I interpret it, it would have been coming down the line if she were still in a relationship with him during that time. It's kind of like a case of the grass is greener on the other side. That's one way you can think about it. Another way you can think about it is just that sometimes when you're in a very stressful, chaotic environment, you tend to naturally think about times that were simpler. Have you guys seen those TikToks or reels where they're like, oh yeah, the light was so much brighter in 2005, referring to like their childhood? And yeah, like some memories, the sunlight is brighter than it is now. And I think those memories for the protagonists were perhaps a time when like the sunshine was brighter, because that person was literally, metaphorically literally sunshine, but also because things were just simpler and she could have had more simplicity if she had chosen a life with him. The word guess also makes me think for a nanosecond about regret, but I don't think the protagonist is like regretting her decision. Fleeting thought. We all have those. And he never thinks of me except when I'm on TV. For my notes for this, I just have exclamation point. Oh my God. I was so shook when I heard this the first time. I was like, okay. Okay, I enjoy that a lot. That must be so weird for the guy, like OMG. I guess sometimes we all get some kind of haunted. She's haunted by these memories. She's haunted by these what ifs, right? And I think too, like the further you go on a path, if it becomes difficult at times, and again, I'm not saying this song is 100% autobiographical, but we know that Taylor had some really difficult years in the public, at least. I'm referring to the years that inspired the Reputation album. Maybe it was some midnights during that time where you get haunted by the what ifs and the possibilities and the decisions you made, and you're like, if I had chosen to go down that path, my life would be quiet and calm and chill, and I wouldn't be stressed out right now. Like magazines wouldn't be writing mean things about you. It would look really different, right? It would feel more chill. So here I think the protagonist is haunted by a memory and a possible life that she could have lived. And I never think of him except on midnights like this. I love this bridge so much. I love the last two lines here. My favorite lyrics in this verse are, and he never thinks of me except when I'm on TV, because like you wouldn't expect her to say that, but she does. And then the last two lines, and I never think of him except on midnights like this. Sometimes we all have those moments where we look back and we can specify a point in our lives, a moment, a decision we made, an epiphany we had where everything changed for us. Once we made that decision, the course of our life shifted. The entire course of your life can shift by one decision, meeting one person, breaking up with one person. Everything changes your life, but sometimes we can pinpoint an exact moment. This memory that the protagonist is haunted by is one of those moments. She is thinking about the life she gave away. She had a chance for that life. Some people don't even have the opportunity to say yes to a life like that, one that is stable and chill and comfortable, but she did. At the time, she knew that life wasn't meant for her, and I don't think that there's a lot of regret here. I think there could be fleeting moments of regret, but I think in harder times, you may think back to those moments when you made those decisions. This song makes me feel nostalgic. It makes me think about like a nostalgic sort of regret. So nostalgia can be positive in small doses, but I don't view it as a positive thing because it can be very heavy and it can just like hinder you from moving forward if you remain within the realm of nostalgia for too long. But I get like a feeling of like someone being nostalgic and regretful at the same time, and that is like coupling and turning into like a new feeling, kind of like sadistic if you stay in that state for too long. That's also like an element to this that I'm thinking about. I think it's very, very subtle. I think that the midnights like this that the protagonist is referring to are very difficult midnights where the protagonist is dealing with a lot of hardships due to her career, due to the decisions she made when she decided to say no to that life and say yes to the other life. One thing I want to say is that sunshine and rain can exist at the same time. However, sunshine and rain at midnight can never exist at the same time. Never. Right? It can't be day and night at the same time. These two people, the essence of their soul is different. You don't have to be the same as your soulmate, right? But there has to be some common ground. And you have to want to build your life in the same way. You want to build something together in a relationship. These two people just simply wouldn't have been able to build something that they both actually wanted. One person would have had to sacrifice too much. And in this case, it would have been the protagonist. This guy's life seems like it was already established. There was already a blueprint to follow. But the protagonist wanted to create her own blueprint. I would love to hear your thoughts about this down below. As always, make sure to stay tuned for more Midnight's analyses from yours truly. My tutoring services are also linked down below if you're interested. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!